Hey guys, welcome back to Sparkman Homestead. Here is another week's worth of meals for you. So the very first meal we are going to get started with is a Panda Express copycat recipe. It is for their chow mein, and then also the other thing that I really love to get at Panda Express is their chicken teriyaki. So I thought tonight we were going to do like a Panda Express night. We don't have a Panda Express even close to us. Thought I was going to try to master what I normally get at Panda Express at home. So I took some bone-in skinless chicken thighs and just marinated them in some of my home canned teriyaki sauce. I have left that recipe linked for you guys if you want to give it a try. It is so easy to make and you can just can it up and then you have shelf-stable teriyaki available when you know what's in it and it's just clean ingredients. So we're gonna get a cabbage all shredded up. This is a cabbage that I had in my fridge and it was probably in there for at least 2 months. It needed to get used up. So I shredded it up. I have my air fryer. We're going to air fry these chicken teriyakis. So we are going to put them in, I believe I did 390 for 12 minutes. No, I did 400 for, how many minutes am I putting in here? Yep, 12 minutes. I couldn't remember. So we are going to make the sauce for the chow mein. What you're going to do is take half a cup of reduced sodium soy sauce, 3 cloves of garlic minced, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 2 teaspoons of ginger freshly grated. Here's where I made the mistake. I put way too much ginger in this. I was just shredding away and got shred happy and just had way too much ginger, and it actually made this whole dish taste really, it was either really too, it wasn't spicy, but it tasted like it was almost too salty, but it was just too much ginger. So definitely go the 2 teaspoons. I would not go over it. Then you're gonna add half a teaspoon of ground black pepper and then just mix that and put it aside. I am getting the chicken teriyaki out of the air fryer now and it was completely burnt to a crisp. I had Googled a temperature to cook this at and it was definitely way too high for doing the teriyaki. I think because the sugar that was in the sauce anyways, it caused it to burn. We ate it anyways. So we're gonna get the noodles all ready for the chow mein. What I have here is just a package of noodles that I picked up from my Asian market in Nashville. You can use ramen noodles, just don't put the seasoning pack in, just use the noodles, but these essentially are just like a ramen noodle. You want to cook the noodles according to the direction that is on the ramen noodle or noodle package. Just said boil the water, put the noodles in, take the water off of the heat, put a lid on them and leave them for 2 minutes. So after the 2 minutes, I just drain the water off and set the noodles aside. Next, you want to add 2 tablespoons of a sesame oil to a medium-sized skillet. And then you're going to put in 2 cups of your shredded cabbage. And then if you want, you can use half a cup of diced onions in this. I don't cook with the actual onion, so I just use some granulated onion and just stir it all up. And you want to cook this for approximately 3 to 4 minutes, just until everything is completely tender. So once you get to that point, you are going to add your noodles in and then you are going to add your soy sauce mixture. You want to make sure the noodles are good and coated. You're going to let this cook for approximately 2 minutes, let it rest for another 2 minutes, and then you have your chow mein noodles. It says serve immediately. This meal was a huge disappointment. I had made some edamame beans there and just put them on the side, but I have to work on this recipe, and I think next time I make the teriyaki chicken, I'm just gonna do it in my oven. That's probably the easiest way to do it because it was such a tragedy because I love this teriyaki sauce and I love chicken thighs, but it was just burnt. But there's the meal. So the next meal we are going to do is another experiment meal. I have never made fish sticks this way and I thought it looked really interesting. So we are gonna make a crispy baked fish stick. I have some corn flakes in my pantry that I had actually bought a while ago. I wanted to make a Butterfinger recipe with them and I never ended up doing it, so they needed to get used. So I thought this recipe would be perfect to use them in. So we are going to crush up 1 cup of corn flakes, and to that mixture we are going to add 1 teaspoon of lemon pepper and 1 teaspoon of paprika, and you're going to add half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, and then it says half to 3/4 teaspoon of salt. You're going to whisk all of that together. Now just to let you know ahead of time, this was not nearly enough batter. I actually had to come back and double because I ran out of the actual cornflake mixture. To another mixing bowl or to like a low shallow bowl, you are going to take 2 eggs and whisk them. I also had to come back in and add a couple more eggs. I think it was because I was using more fish than the original recipe had called for. Then in a third dish, you are going to take 1 cup of flour and set that aside. The recipe says to use 1 pound of codfish or cod fillets cut into 1-inch strips. I use just 4 prepackaged stuff. I think I got this at either Sam's Club or Costco, one of them. So these were pretty big pieces of cod, so I ended up cutting them each individual one. I cut into 4 different strips. I did not want to have a huge, ginormous fish stick. I wanted like the little tiny ones that you can get in the packages. To the flour, I just came in and added a little bit of salt and pepper. Recipe doesn't say anything about that. I just like to have that extra seasoning in my flour. You're gonna take your cut up fish, you're going to put it into the flour mixture, get it good and coated. Then you're gonna transfer it over to your egg, get that also coated, and then bring it over to your corn flake mixture. And you're just gonna do that for all of the pieces. You wanna have your oven at 400 degrees, preheated at 400 degrees. And then the baking sheet that you are cooking it on, it says here cover with parchment paper and then spray it with a non-stick spray. I was just using one of those non-stick things, so I didn't spray it or anything. So you're gonna put this in the oven for 12 to 14 minutes. I went the full 14 minutes and it was cooked perfectly through. You can do these also in the air fryer, but honestly, after last week's experience with that pork chop, I was not trying to lose all of the coating off of these. So to the oven it went. Me and the air fryer are not getting along lately. So here is our supper. I decided to make a salad because again, we are still loaded with lettuce right now, which is amazing. And then I also actually had a couple of green tomatoes and I brought them inside and they are slowly ripening inside. So we're still eating fresh tomatoes. This was one of my pineapple tomatoes. So delicious. I love carrots and the pickled onions on top of my salad. Steven doesn't like any of those, so I just cut them myself. And one thing that I actually did make in the air fryer was I did make some French fries because I cannot screw French fries up in the air fryer. So there is our meal. It was really, really delicious. For the next meal, we are going to make a crock pot meal. It is a crock pot cheesy broccoli, chicken, and rice. On this particular day, I had a lot of appointments scheduled and I knew that I needed to have a really quick meal when I got home. We are going to take 1 cup of white rice and it is uncooked, it does specify that, and I'm just going to rinse it really, really well. The recipe actually calls to use brown rice and I'm thinking in this particular situation, it would have been a good idea because the rice actually turned to mush. It worked out good, but brown rice might be able to hold its shape a little bit better. This recipe also calls to add 1 small yellow onion peeled and chopped. I didn't use that, and one thing that I've actually been finding that I'm getting away with using without it being detected is just a dried minced onion. So I put some of that in, 2 cloves of garlic, 1 teaspoon of dried thyme, and then 2.5 cups of a low sodium chicken broth. It does say you might want to reserve a little bit for once you add the broccoli in because it can get a little dried out. Keep an additional 1 cup extra. So instead of using 2 boneless, skinless chicken breasts, which the recipe calls for, I decided to use our turkey breast. I really wanted to kind of show you guys right now some stuff with turkey because I know that turkey is available right now in most places and it's usually on sale. So if you can find a meat that is on sale, definitely you can interchange these all the time. Like recipes are very, very flexible in that way. As long as the profile, the flavor profile goes well together, you can definitely switch it up. Also to let you know, if you don't see me doing it, I am washing my hands excessively when I am doing this. Anytime I use any type of chicken product or any meat product, I always wash my hands. You guys just don't end up seeing it, but I am washing my hands literally from every time I touch this to touching something else. So you are going to put a little bit of onion powder and salt on both sides and then some Dijon mustard, and you're just going to rub that into, if you're using chicken, rub it into your chicken. I'm just going to rub it into the turkey here. So once you get it completely coated, you are going to add that to your crock pot. Then you're going to place the lid on the crock pot and cook it on high for 2 hours or low for 5 to 6 hours. I noticed after the 5 hours, mine was looking good and cooked. So what you're gonna do is you are going to take some broccoli and just steam it in your microwave. You wanna use about 2 cups of a broccoli florette, and I just steamed mine until it was very lightly cooked because I was using a frozen broccoli. So you're gonna add that broccoli to your turkey or chicken rice mixture, and then you are going to put in half a cup of sour cream, and you just want to stir that all together. One thing I forgot to mention, when you are done the cooking time, so whether you cooked it for the 5 hours or whatever you chose to do, it says to take the chicken breast out and cut it into pieces before you add the broccoli in. But as you can see, as I'm stirring here, my turkey is literally shredding apart. It was actually almost a tad bit too dry. I probably would have definitely benefited from adding that extra chicken broth into here. I didn't need to do it, so I just omitted that step. But if you want to, you can definitely take it out, chop the chicken, and then add the chicken and broccoli in together. So then you're going to come in and add 1 cup of a shredded cheddar cheese to the top of it. You're going to turn your crock pot on to high and set it for 30 minutes. After the 30 minutes, the cheese is nice and melted, and it is really, really, really good. I think next time I make this, I'm probably going to add a touch bit more salt and definitely try the brown rice and see if it kind of holds its shape a little bit better, because you can kind of see there it's a little bit of like baby food texture. It's not a really good way of describing it, but it does taste delicious. Seasoned it with a little bit of salt and pepper, and that was supper that night. It was really good. For the next meal, we are going to do something that I actually found on Facebook. Now, I've left a link for the website. This is not necessarily the website I found it on, but it is actually a really, really good resource for eating seasonally. It is the University of Kentucky website. On Facebook, I subscribe or I like their page, and every month they send out a recipe to anybody that likes their page. And this one just happens to be one that I was sent out. It was either from my extension office or the University of Kentucky. So one of them sent me it. So I don't have the exact recipe to link for you, but I have linked their website, and I have put a copy of all of the ingredients and the measurements below for you guys. So if you want to try this, give it a try. This is an excellent, excellent, really healthy pasta sauce. So what I'm doing there is taking 2 cups of pumpkin and 1 cup of butternut squash. I just took one of my Canadian crookneck squashes, just cut it all up, and then took one of my small pie pumpkins and cut that up. Now, as I mentioned in my last meal, we are still getting ripe tomatoes because I brought in a whole bunch of green tomatoes. So I have some tomatoes here. This recipe calls for 3 to 4 Roma tomatoes halved. If I did not have the fresh tomatoes, I would have definitely used a can of diced tomatoes. That would have worked as well with this. You're going to take 3 cloves of minced garlic and add that. 1 minced shallot. I didn't have a shallot available, so I just used a really small sweet yellow onion. Just cut that up. And then you're going to add 1 teaspoon of ground sage. I didn't have ground sage. I used regular sage. Ground sage would definitely intensify that sage taste, so definitely if you have that available, use that. And then you're going to add 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, and then you are going to add a 3/4 stick of butter, and you're going to slice that up and mix all of that together. I have my oven preheated at 400 degrees. Now I'm doing this on a stoneware baking sheet so it doesn't really burn. I would recommend doing this on parchment paper just so you don't get it burnt too much. The recipe doesn't specify how long to bake it for. It just says just until edges of the pumpkin and squash start to fold in. So what I did was I actually kept coming back. I think it took 45 minutes in total, and I was just kind of checking the squash to see if it broke apart really easily. Once it's done cooking, you are going to carefully place the ingredients into a blender. You can use an immersion blender for this as well. I just thought my Vitamix makes really quick work of it. Making sure you get all of the drippings in there because that butter is amazing. So you're going to mix this until it is smooth. It really only takes a couple of minutes, especially if you have a Vitamix. There's the texture of it. I give it a little taste test at that point, and you can definitely leave it at that, but the recipe does call for another couple of ingredients. So you're going to add 2 cups of spinach. I just used a bag of frozen spinach, 2 cups of veggie broth, and then half a teaspoon of allspice, half a teaspoon of red pepper flakes, and then just a little bit more salt and pepper, and then 3/4 cups of grated parmesan. You're gonna blend that all together until again it becomes nice and smooth. Then you want to add this to a large pot, and you are going to cook this on low just until it gets good and heated through. So I chose to serve this with pasta. So in the background here, I'm just getting some of this pasta cooked. So I'm going to get this heated up. Now I actually remembered that I wanted to do sausage on this particular night, so I took that off of the heat while the pasta was cooking and quickly fried up some sausages. These are just some sausages that we picked up at Sam's Club. They're just a really good, easy meal to make. So I just put them in a little bit of water just to cook them with the lid on until they got good and steamed. And then after about 15 minutes, I took the lid off once the water was evaporated and then just fried them. So I taste tested this sauce and it was missing something. So I came in and added quite a bit of granulated garlic, some more salt, some more pepper, and some more red pepper flakes. Stirred it together, and once everything was all stirred and I added those extra little added things at the end, amazing sauce. So here we are just plating it up. I added the pasta, put the sauce on top, and then we had the sausage. Now, one really nice thing about this recipe is it makes a lot of sauce. This was definitely way more than me and Steven could eat in one meal. It probably is way more than even 2 meals. This recipe is really good if you are cooking for a party of people or a large family. Really good serving size. So what I ended up doing with this leftover pasta is I actually put it into a Ziploc freezer bag, just kind of flattened it a little bit and froze it overnight, and now I have all of this pasta sauce in my freezer for another night to use. Really good meal. For the last meal, we are going to make an amazing dessert. This is for a pumpkin crisp. Now, it is not like a traditional crisp where you think of like a fruit crisp, you know, where you just cut up the fruit, put it in, and then put this topping over top. It is more, I think, in my opinion, kind of like a pumpkin pie. It is very delicious and very decadent. So we're gonna start out by using some of our pumpkins that we harvested from our garden. They were starting to go a little bit bad, so I wanted to get them used up. I've seen this recipe and this is perfect to use them in. So I'm gonna roast more than I need for this recipe. I like to do this because then I always have pumpkin available in my freezer, like pumpkin puree. So I just take the pumpkins and I cut them in half. I'm using a mixture of, that one right there is a Long Island cheese pizza, the one that, or cheese pumpkin, the one that is the cream colored one, and then the other ones are just pie pumpkins. So you're gonna put them in the oven. I have my oven turned on about 400 degrees, and you're gonna roast them until they're very soft. Mine took about 40 minutes for that amount that I had there. Once they are cooled off, and trust me, you want to wait for them to cool to do this because they are hot out of the oven. So once they're cool enough to touch, you're gonna take them and just scrape all of the pumpkin meat off of the skins. Next, you wanna put them in a blender, or you can even use an immersion blender for this. I just find that it's a lot more cleaner, less messy, less pumpkin sprayed everywhere to do it in the blender. It honestly only takes a couple of minutes to get it to a nice pureed consistency. Then what I like to do is take a colander with some Mechlin cloth or tea towel or cheesecloth and just put it over a bowl, and then I put all of that pumpkin puree in, and then I let this drain for at least a minimum of a couple of hours. I usually let it go for 24 hours, and I find at that mark I've gotten most of the water drained off of the pumpkin. It really also depends on what kind of pumpkin you are using. So after the 24 hours, we are left with some amazing pumpkin puree. Now in this recipe, you don't need to go through all of these steps. If you want to omit this and just buy a can of pumpkin puree, definitely do this. I was just doing this because I had a whole bunch of pumpkin I needed to get used up. Now that our pumpkin's ready, we are going to get the pumpkin crisp all made up. So this recipe calls for 12 tablespoons or 1.5 sticks of unsalted butter melted. I use salted perfectly fine. What I like to do when buttering things is just use the butter wrapper. So you want to take a cast iron skillet and just make sure that you butter it very good. If you do not have a cast iron skillet, you can use a 9x9 baking dish in place of the cast iron. You're gonna set your buttered either dish or cast iron aside, and we're gonna get the components all assembled now. So you're gonna take one 15-ounce can of pumpkin puree, or if you're using a fresh one that you just made, 1 cup, and then you're gonna add 1 cup of sugar, 3 eggs, 2 teaspoons of a pumpkin pie spice, half a teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and you're gonna whisk that together until it is all combined. And then you are going to add 2/3 cup of a heavy cream to this, and then you're gonna whisk that all together and then set that aside. You're going to get your cast iron skillet or your baking pan, whatever you choose to bake this in, and you are going to pour all of that batter into that. Also, I forgot to mention at the beginning, you want to have your oven preheated at 375 degrees. So next up, we're going to get this streusel topping all made. So you're going to add 2 cups of an all-purpose flour. I just use an organic unbleached flour. And then you're going to add 1.5 cups of sugar, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, half a teaspoon of salt, and then that 12 tablespoons or 1.5 sticks of unsalted butter that we melted at the beginning. You want to take a fork, or I honestly found that using my hands actually got this better incorporated. And you just want to mix it until there is no flour left over, just everything is good and incorporated. You almost want like a crumble topping. Once you get everything mixed together, you are going to put that on top of your pumpkin pie mixture. You just want to completely coat the whole topping with it. You're going to put this in the oven and bake it for about 40 to 45 minutes. It just says until the filling is set and the top is golden brown. Mine took about 45 minutes to cook. Then you want to let this cool for 10 minutes and then serve it with any type of topping that you would typically serve on top of a pie. We did whipped cream. It was delicious. Vanilla ice cream would also be delicious on this. This dessert is really rich. I ended up putting way more than I actually ate in the bowl. I didn't even eat half of what I served myself. It's so decadent. Just an absolute delicious meal or dessert. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and again, I hope I give you a little inspiration for your upcoming meals this week. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day or night whenever you're watching this, and I will see you on the next video. Bye guys.